Lighttubes, as synonymous with deathmatch wrestling as blood and brutality. But not since the discovery of CTE and its connection to unprotected chair shots has a single item caused so much discourse in the wrestling community. With the potential end of fluorescent light tube production due to them being phased out in multiple countries, the debate about use and overuse in deathmatch wrestling is kicked up, with some claiming the essential nature of them and many wrestlers themselves saying they aren't essential, but they do bring another element to the matches. This video is an attempt to cover light tubes in deathmatch wrestling as best as possible. The first usage of light tubes inside of a pro wrestling confines has been a source of long and heated debate. I've tried to find as much information on this as humanly possible in the past year, and the history is extremely difficult to trace. But from what I can ascertain, the first usage of fluorescent light fixture came during a cage match with Sabu and Cactus Jack on June 24, 1995. Cactus Jack cracked the fixture over Sabu's head and proceeded to cut him with a jagged edge. In the same match, Sabu landed a leg drop on a light tube onto Cactus Jack and also hit him with one after the match was over. This footage I haven't been able to find, but it was reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter July 3rd, 1995 edition. Thus the first usage of light tubes in pro wrestling, but it was slow to catch on initially. Big Japan Wrestling would start using light bulbs in 1996 in their efforts to be more experimental with stipulations to draw larger crowds. Mitsuhiro Matsunaga led this charge with some insane stipulations, like the no-rope barbed wire scramble bunkhouse electrify light bulbs death match against Shoji Nakamaki on September 30th, 1996. But BJW wouldn't use light tubes until 1997 in a match between Shoji Nakamaki, Ryuji Yamakawa versus Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and the Great Kojika. It was billed as a moonlight match with 4 light tube boards lit up in each corner and the lights of Korakuen Hall dimmed. And again, I haven't been able to find footage of this match either. If you've been able to find footage of this match or the one previously mentioned, please send them to me. Same trend happened in the US. First light bulbs were utilized in IWA Mid-South's first ever King of the Death match in 1997, with lit light bulbs being hung from the barbed wire ropes in the finals between Axel Rotten and Ian Rotten. After that, IWA Mid-South and US deathmatch companies began using light tubes more frequently going forward. Combat Zone Wrestling had the first ever 200 light tubes match on June 25th, 2000. At the They Said It Couldn't Be Done event with Nick Gage defeating Wife Beater. From there, light tubes became a standard deathmatch weapon used in matches and as part of stipulations. Even AEW, a mainstream company, used them in a few matches recently. From 200 light tube matches to 445 light tube matches with Abdullah Kobayashi and Yuko Miyamoto, to the 700 light tubes match that happened recently with Matt Tremont and Neil Diamond Cutter, to the one-tube match that DDT put on in 2019 between Akito and Asuka, with the wrestler who first breaks the light tube losing the match. This video could just literally be me reading out different stipulations and configurations which light tubes have been used. Wrestlers have used them in creative ways like bundles, with 53 being the most used in a single bundle by That Kyle on Hardcore.
What the fuck? Oh my god! What the fuck was 53 fucking tube bundle, Francis!
Log cabins, which to be honest, don't even look like log cabins, but whatever, that's what they're called. Stars, fears, attached to doors, attached to skateboards, long ones bundled together called Tokyo Towers, electrified light tubes. I literally got overwhelmed by how many different ways they have been used in matches throughout the years and the different stipulations they have been used. The reason light tubes have become such a staple is due to their relatively cheap nature to obtain and utilize in matches for a tremendous payoff when done correctly. There have been misconceptions surrounding mercury content in light tubes, affectionately known to the fans as spooky dust. While it is true that there is mercury in them, the amount in a single tube is equivalent to the amount of mercury in a can of tuna fish. A small amount of mercury heats up when the lamp is plugged in and starts to vaporize, which produces the light. Most tubes are filled with 93% argon and 6% nitrogen, which is most of the spooky dust seen. Argon is relatively harmless in comparison to mercury, with argon only causing nausea and dizziness. As far as long-term damage from inhalation, over 30 years of usage, and there hasn't been a single wrestler get sick from light tube usage, or at least been reported. The sole case of mercury poisoning from a match using light tubes that I have come across is Alexander Neviev versus Moth in Russia, where they used Soviet-era made tubes which had a way higher mercury content than normal light tubes do. Both men got sick from mercury poisoning afterwards. When it comes to the dangers of light tubes, the glass itself is the biggest danger and produces some of the ghastliest cuts in pro wrestling. Warning, some nasty shit is about to be on your screen, so skip ahead or look away. This is a non-exhaustive list of some of the nastiest cuts in history caused by light tubes. Hoodfoot getting stabbed in the arm by Slade requiring 40 internal and external staples. John Wayne Murdoch's shoulder gash during an IWA Mid-South event. Die Hard Dustin Lee's worst shoulder gash. Ricky Shane Page almost losing his eye with a gash just above his eyebrow. Otis Kogar getting his arm sliced. Sexy Eddie severing an artery in his arm, delivering a suplex onto a bundle. Blood landing on the shopping cart, knee first. That one in particular makes me cringe. Matt Tremont being hospitalized for a week following the 700 light tubes match due to blood loss. Alexi Kicktrick got an artery in his chest sliced open at Blood and Sand 9 so bad it ended a Russian death match prematurely. Mickey Knuckles having shards of glass inside of her thigh and still finishing the match at H2O Angels of Death. And the worst one of all, Nick Gage literally getting cut and dying briefly before being brought back to life at Tournament of Death 8. There's also a preferred thickness of tubes when possible. In North America, T12 gauge tubes are normally used in most matches for their louder pop and for not shredding the skin as badly. T5 and T8 gauges, also known as skinnies, are primarily used in the Australian, Russian, and UK deathmatch scenes. The T8 tubes are notoriously bad for shredding skin. Both Die Hard, Dustin Lee, and Nick Gage were cut up badly by T8 tubes. Broken glass is the most unpredictable part of the whole experience. Flying shards ricocheting into the audience is a real concern for some venues, and have instituted no glass policies for that reason, among others. But for the sickos, it's all part of the experience, and these fans know the risks when standing in the splash zone. With multiple countries phasing out production of fluorescent light bulbs in the upcoming years, there is a very real possibility we could see the end of light tubes in deathmatch wrestling. But with this potential reality, it has sparked a debate around whether or not light tubes are needed for deathmatch wrestling. They've become a crutch for some, and as Akira said, quote, "It will never replace good wrestling, character, and psychology," end quote. Even Schlack has said the overuse of tubes has lowered the skill level and made spots predictable. However, there is an argument that without tubes there isn't a death match, but the debate about what constitutes a death match and a hardcore match is another video for another time. Light tubes are for many what separates this type of wrestling from mainstream wrestling and brings utter chaos for the fans who love it. They are visually and audibly impressive and a spectacle when used correctly. With the added element of danger for wrestlers and fans in attendance, light tubes brings a new level of excitement. For me, we don't get many light tubes in wrestling matches in Canada due to most venues being no glass. I've been in a splash zone for one light tube in my entire life.
La resistance!
They are rare for us here, and because of that, there is no problem with the overusage, and forces wrestlers to be more creative with weapon making. I see both sides of the argument, and while I agree that nothing replaces great wrestling, the unpredictability of light tubes being used always will intrigue me and draw me in. But then again, I am a complete sicko.